Uganda's 2026 election, the latest chapter in 40 years of Museveni. President Yoweri Museveni, 81, won Uganda's 2026 election with 71.65% of the vote, according to official results announced on Saturday. He defeated his main challenger, 43-year-old Bobi Wine, who received 24.72% of the vote. Museveni has been in power since 1986, and this victory secures him a seventh term. However, the conditions under which this election occurred tell a far darker story. A tainted electoral process. 1. Electoral manipulation and violence. The chairman of the Electoral Commission acknowledged receiving warnings from senior government figures not to declare certain candidates as winners. On January 13, 2026, the Uganda Communications Commission imposed a suspension of mobile internet services, citing misinformation, electoral fraud, and incitement of violence. The campaign period was marked by a severe crackdown on the opposition and an internet blackout, with the United Nations stating that the election was marred by widespread repression and intimidation. On election day, biometric voter identification machines failed, forcing officials to rely on manual registers, likely forming the basis for future legal challenges. 2. Post-election violence. At least 7 people were killed overnight in violence in Butambala, with conflicting accounts from police and opposition sources. Bobi Wine said police stormed his home late on Friday evening and that he managed to escape, while his wife and other family members remained under house arrest. Supporters of Wine protested the results, with at least 7 protesters reportedly killed between January 15th and 16th. 3. Systematic removal of democratic safeguards. Presidential term limits were abolished in 2005. Uganda has not witnessed a peaceful transfer of presidential power since independence from British colonial rule more than 6 decades ago. Veteran opposition figure Kizza Besigye, a 4-time presidential candidate, remains in prison after being charged with treason in February 2025. The broader pattern. Africa's leaders for life. Uganda is far from alone. As of 2025, 5 African heads of state have been in power for more than 3 decades. Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo of Equatorial Guinea, Paul Biya of Cameroon, Denis Sassou Nguesso of the Republic of Congo, Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, and Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea. Among them, Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo leads with 46 years in office, making him the world's longest-serving president. Paul Biya, at 92 years old, is the oldest current head of state and the second longest ruling president in Africa. Yoweri Museveni has ruled Uganda since January 29, 1986, after leading a successful guerrilla war. How African elites maintain power. The playbook. These leaders rely on strikingly similar tactics. 1. Constitutional manipulation. In Congo-Brazzaville, a 2015 constitutional change reduced presidential terms from 7 to 5 years while abolishing term limits entirely. In July 2025, Cameroon's Paul Biya announced he would seek an 8th term at age 92. 2. Electoral fraud. Congo-Brazzaville is frequently accused of lacking electoral transparency, with internet connectivity routinely disrupted and international observers excluded. 3. Repression of opposition. Bobi Wine reported that authorities followed him and harassed his supporters, often deploying tear gas. Due to security fears, he campaigned wearing a flak jacket and helmet. 4. Control of institutions. Museveni has remained in power by rewriting constitutional rules, removing both term and age limits, and jailing or sidelining potential rivals. the devastating consequences for Africa. This pattern is deeply damaging to the continent, with severe consequences. 1. Economic stagnation. Entrenched leadership fuels corruption, instability, social fragmentation, and long-term economic stagnation across the region. 2. Democratic backsliding. Museveni's extended rule has drawn sustained criticism for democratic erosion, suppression of political opposition, and widespread human rights abuses. 3. Youth frustration. A stark generational divide has emerged. Many Ugandans still credit Museveni with ending post-independence chaos and overseeing early economic growth. Meanwhile, Bobi Wine, at 43, campaigned for change after 4 decades of the same leadership. 4. Rising instability. The COVID-19 pandemic created opportunities for leaders to postpone elections and entrench power. Since 2020, a wave of coups has highlighted growing instability, mounting public frustration, and declining trust in democratic institutions. Can only Africans solve this problem? This is a crucial question, and the answer is complex. Yes, primarily, but with important nuances. 1. Internal agency is essential. Legitimacy for change must come from within African societies. External intervention, especially military, has consistently failed and often made crises worse. 2. African civil society is resisting efforts to extend presidential term limits in Zambia, 2001, and Malawi, 2003, were defeated after civil society groups allied with lawmakers from ruling parties. In 2006, Nigeria's Senate rejected a constitutional amendment that would have allowed President Olusegun Obasanjo to seek a 3rd term. 3. Popular support for democracy remains. Polling from 2023 shows that democracy and strong term limits continue to enjoy widespread support across Africa. Why external factors still matter? 1. Foreign support for dictators. Some regimes survive due to backing from foreign powers driven by geopolitical and economic interests. 2. Regional institutions could do more. The African Union has acted against some military coups but has been inconsistent in addressing constitutional coups and term limit violations. 3. International pressure and accountability. Targeted sanctions, asset freezes, travel bans, and legal accountability can raise the cost of repression without harming ordinary citizens. 4. Economic leverage. International financial institutions and donor countries could condition assistance on democratic governance, though this requires coordination and political will. The hard truth, a multifaceted crisis. Africa's governance crisis has several interconnected dimensions. 1. Elite capture. These are not merely individual leaders, but entrenched systems of patronage, ethnic networks, and security structures that benefit from the status quo. In some cases, leaders are grooming family members as successors. 2. The legitimacy paradox. Support for democracy risks eroding when democratic systems fail to deliver tangible benefits, making authoritarian power grabs appealing to frustrated populations. 3. The military coup temptation. For many Africans, democracy has appeared as a facade behind which narrow elites hoard power, making military rule seem attractive to some. What can actually work? Based on successful cases and current realities, sustained internal pressure from civil society, independent media, youth movements, labor unions, professional associations, and religious and traditional leaders. Regional solidarity, with African citizens and institutions holding leaders accountable. Calibrated external support, including targeted sanctions, support for independent media, internet freedom tools, and international legal accountability, not military intervention. alternative governance models, showing that democracy can deliver results, as seen in countries like Botswana and Ghana, despite recent challenges. Conclusion: African agency with strategic support. Greedy elites clinging to power are inflicting enormous harm on Africa. Uganda's experience, 4 decades of Museveni, fraudulent elections, internet shutdowns, and violence against opposition, is repeated across the continent. Change must be African-led, driven by citizens, youth movements, and civil society. External military intervention or imposed solutions would almost certainly fail. At the same time, claiming Africans must solve this entirely alone ignores the role of external powers in sustaining authoritarian regimes, the impact of targeted international pressure, the historical importance of global solidarity. The path forward requires Africans driving change, regional institutions enforcing democratic norms, the international community supporting, not leading, these efforts, cutting off financial and military lifelines to authoritarian regimes. Patience, because entrenched systems do not collapse overnight. Bobi Wine in Uganda, like protesters in Iran, represents genuine grassroots resistance. The real question is whether the international community will help create conditions for success through targeted pressure on elites, not actions that undermine popular movements. If you found this analysis valuable, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with others who care about Africa's future. Most importantly, drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe real democratic change is possible under these conditions? Let's discuss.